Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Greetings, my friends, from the secure, very hidden confines of our broadcast facility here on the left coast, Rush Limbaugh, the EIB network, and the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Anti-Leftist and Anti-Media Studies. Happy to be with you. A telephone number, if you want to be on the program today, is 800-282-2882. And if you want to send an email, I check them during the break. It's rushball@eibnet.us. It's new iPhone day from Apple, but I, as a highly trained, dedicated, and instinctive broadcast specialist, will not be distracted by that at all, at least for the first 5 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. It's pretty much known what's going to happen because of a massive, massive leak that suspected is to have come from a rogue, angry employee at Apple. So anyway, their new phones will be announced today, and the news will be confirmed, or we will be surprised with what elements of the leaks haven't been true. But while that is going on, and it's going to captivate the attention of a lot of people, while that is going on, the world continues to spin, and the events of the world continue to happen here in a way that are unaffected by anything else. Now, over the years, my friends, I have spent some time trying to explain to this audience of people here who liberals are and what they believe and why they believe it. And in one of the specific efforts that I have made repeated attempts to explain to you why the American left does not appear to love America. Instead, they have deep feelings of anger about America. You've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it a gazillion times. They do not believe in American exceptionalism. They don't believe in American greatness. They believe America was founded in an unjust, unfair, and in some cases, illegal manner. They think there's nothing worthy of celebrating about the United States. It's imperfect, and it can be perfected, but only if they are responsible for it. They do not believe that we are a legitimate superpower. They believe that our superpower status is the result of theft, that we have behaved as an imperial people, and we have conquered the world, and we have gone everywhere we've gone and stolen what we wanted, and we've brought it back, and that's why we're so economically successful, and that's why we are so rich and wealthy compared to the other nations of the world, because we have stolen what we have. We have not legitimately produced it, and therefore our country is illegitimate. And I've had people say, Rush, don't you think that's a little excessive? Don't you think that's a little? No, it's not excessive at all. I've even gone further in explaining why the left is for complete, total open borders. They believe poverty around the world is the fault of the United States. If we had not gone to Central America and had the CIA murdering leaders and installing our own people, if we'd not gone to the Middle East, if we'd not gone to Europe, and if we'd not plundered these places, the rest of the world wouldn't want to come here. But because we have stolen the world's riches, and because we have plundered the rest of the world, they have no choice but then to come here. And as such, we should let them in. Somebody wants to come to our country to improve their life, and especially if their life is in bad shape because of us in the first place, well, we should let them. And I've had people say, don't you think that's a bit of an exaggeration? Don't you think you're going a little bit overboard on that? I mean, you want people to believe what you're saying, but that sounds so odd that it may sound odd. What it is unconventional. What it is, these are truths that very few people will utter or say for whatever reasons. But I come to you today with a little bit of evidence, as I always do. I always have evidence, facts, news, whatever to back up my claims. And I was just rummaging around doing show prep last night, and I came across a headline. Martin Sheen blames U.S. for ruining Central America, causing immigration. I said, well, looky here. Exactly what I've been saying. Exactly. Thank you, Emilio. His name is Emilio Estevez, right? Is he Emilio or is one of his kids Emilio? He's Emilio. Okay. Martin Sheen. This is the guy. I remember when this program first started, 1988, August 1st, 1988, about a month later, Martin Sheen was the mayor of Malibu or something, and he wanted to import a bunch of homeless people into Malibu because of the way they were being mistreated. This was the guy that had banded together with the now famous Mitch Snyder, the homeless advocate. Who would want to advocate for homelessness? These are the people that thought a shopping cart was a legitimate home. Anyway, this guy would get together with Mitch Snyder, who lived in Washington, and they would go to Washington on cold nights, and they would kick the homeless off their sleeping grates and sleep on themselves to show solidarity with the homeless. So what I wanted to do, it might not have the first month, but I mean, it was in the first year. I wanted to charter a bus and put a bunch of homeless people, round them up here in Los Angeles, and drive them to Malibu, because this is what Martin Sheen said he wanted to do. And I was discouraged from doing this by my syndication partners because of potential litigation. If any of the homeless on my chartered bus had gotten injured, I would be liable. They ran in there and said, don't do this. You can talk about doing it, but don't actually charter a bus and put the homeless on it. You don't know who's going to end up in the bus. So I didn't do it. I mean, it was made. Johnny Carson did a week's worth of stuff on this. Now, that's who this guy is, Martin Sheen, okay? Appearing as a guest on the Tavis Smiley Show Monday on PBS, liberal actor Martin Sheen claimed the United States is to blame for causing so many immigrants to leave Central American countries and travel to the U.S., as he complained about past interventions in some of those countries. He concluded, "We're looking at what we have wrought." My friends, I do not make this up. I know these people like every square inch of my glorious naked body, not just the back of my hand. I know them. I know what they think. I know what they're going to think before they realize it. I know what they're going to do. Sheen's comments came during a discussion after the host Tavis Smiley brought up Trump's recent decision to end the DACA program that benefits young illegal immigrants. After Sheen commented that it is important to defend these young people, the PBS host suggested that there's hatred for illegal immigrants. And he said, take me back. I want to juxtapose, or have you juxtapose for me, Martin, the hatred that you had to endure when you started out as an actor all those years ago. And the name, it's Ramon. He's Ramon Estevez. And that name, Ramon Estevez, didn't serve you so well, so he had to change his name to Martin Sheen. He changed his name to Sheen because he liked Bishop Sheen. Yeah, one of his sons is Emilio. Is that Charlie, or is that the other one? The other one. I'm having him in a block. Anyway, they are the Estevez family. I have no problem with that. They're the ones that changed their name, not me. Tavis Smiley's bringing it up here. The hatred that you experienced with the same kind of hatred that you see this week, that you've seen this week, that's been, applied against the very same people. So there's hatred out there, folks. All because Trump wants to rescind an unconstitutional presidential executive action, the DACA deal. By the way, well, I have to get into this in a moment, but, I've been suggesting, I put forth, look, if you wanted, nobody wants to round up these kids and kick them out of the country, but nobody wants to round them up and deport them. Although most of them aren't kids anymore. Some of them still are. Saw something that 30% of the 800,000 that Obama granted entry have engaged in some kind of criminal activity, some of it misdemeanor, some felony. But the point is, they're not kids anymore. But the American people are not going to sit by, just watch kids rounded up and sent back home. So once you get something for it, if you're going to go ahead and legalize this, get funding for the wall. Get something. You're the art of the deal. Get something. You like Chuck and Nancy now. You did a lot of deals with Chuck. There's more deals coming up with Chuck and Nancy. Do you know this? Tax reform. Trump may do tax reform with Chuck and Nancy. Got it right here. It's in audio soundbite number 2. Coming up. Don't go anywhere. So he's not going to get anything. It doesn't appear that he's going to demand funding for the wall in either whatever he plans to do with DACA or this deal he did with Chuck and Nancy on the debt ceiling and some of the other items that were in that deal. Anyway, back to this. Martin Sheen recounted what his life was like when he was younger and trying to get into acting. Smiley followed up with another question about immigration. If we are a nation of immigrants, said Smiley, what's happened that's caused this to happen? What is it about the story that we're writing at this moment that's caused us to turn on immigrants if we're a nation of immigrants? Now, you see here, the trick for these people is to never draw a distinction between legal and illegal immigration. They just treat all immigration as legal. And why? Well, because we deserve it. We deserve to find out the rest of the way the world really lives because we caused it. We're responsible for the pain and suffering because we have plundered and we have stolen and we've steamrollered over these smaller countries and smaller people. And it's no wonder they hate us. They're justified. It's no wonder they want to come here and get back what we stole from them. Here, Martin Sheen is essentially admitting all of this. So I just wanted to bring your attention to this. And he said, Martin Sheen, not elected Democrat. He doesn't. He does. They all think the same way, folks. They're automatons. That's the point about them. You have to believe the same things or you're thrown out. You have to say the same things or they will shut you up. It's what we were talking about yesterday when it comes to groupthink and consensus. And here's something I just wanted to mention. That's it. That's a sum total. I just wanted to give you evidence. Some people said you're going a little overboard in the way you're describing it. No, this is what they think. That is how, in their minds, they moralize the legitimacy of allowing immigrants to break the law and come here because they deserve to be exempted because we've basically made them poor. And then they run around, and this is part and parcel of their never-ending attacks on the founding and the decency of the country. An author and journalist came under fire on social media yesterday after she tweeted a reply to an anti-looting warning from Miami police by saying, the carceral state is inseparable from white supremacy. What she means is that police officers are arresting looters. Where I live, the only people allowed on the island in South Florida are residents and EMS people right now. That's called, I think they're calling it Phase 2. Phase 3 is when employees, people that own businesses but don't live there, can return. Like we couldn't do the EIB network program the other day because the staff who doesn't live there was not be allowed on the island. And the reason for this, and it's not just Palm Beach, it's all over South Florida, it's to keep looters out. The biggest problem they've got, because every criminal mind knows that there are a lot of homes unoccupied, a lot of homes that didn't suffer a lot of damage unoccupied, that people got the hell out. And so they are just sitting duck targets. So the police are doing everything they can to keep the criminal element out. And for the most part, they're doing a good job. But when they find looters, either of public property or private property, small business, they're arresting them. And this author is calling that white supremacy. You see, even criminals in a time of disaster have a right to what they see in the store, even if they can't afford it. In fact, even more if they can't afford it, because that's unfair and that's unjust. And that's another reason why America's a bad place. And so these people are just trying to survive, and to arrest them is nothing more than white supremacy. You have to look up carceral. It means having to do with prison. It's part of the root word of incarceration. The Miami Police Department took to Twitter on Sunday as Hurricane Irma, which, by the way, not as strong as predicted, which, by the way, only did 1/3 the amount of damage that was predicted, which, by the way, is still bad, but which, by the way, is not what was predicted. I will get in trouble for pointing this out. Anyway, the Miami Police Department took to Twitter on Sunday as Hurricane Irma battered the state. Here was the tweet. You thinking about looting? Ask these guys how that turned out for them. That's what the tweet said. And there was a photo of people inside a jail cell. Though Sarah Jaffe's tweet on Monday garnered 1,500 likes, it sparked more than 100 comments, many of which were critical and accused her of being racist. She's the police, so she's the law enforcement official. And that's when this author came out and said, this is racist, this is white supremacy. White supremacy to enforce the law. According to one of her several online biographies, Ms. Jaffe is a Nation Institute fellow and an independent journalist covering labor, economic justice, social movements, politics, gender, and pop culture. Her work has appeared in The Nation, in Salon, The Week, The American Prospect, a Washington Post, The Atlantic, and many other publications. So she has a wide distribution network. She wrote, they have prisons, crime, and private property in Nigeria, too, and Egypt and India. Nothing to do with white supremacy, poverty. Oh, that's a responder wrote that, not her. Jaffe is the author of the book, Necessary Trouble, Americans in Revolt. Anyway, the point is, she's not alone in thinking this. That it is white supremacy. It fits their narrative of the day, that enforcing the law is white supremacy, because who founded the nation? A bunch of white guys. Who founded the nation and wrote the laws? A bunch of white guys. What were they? They were racist pigs in their way of thinking. And so the Democrat Party wonders why it can't win elections. And it's only going to get worse the more they keep this up, because they are not in any way, shape, manner, form representative of even half, not even half, of the way people in this country think. Let's take a quick time out. We'll be back and continue after this. Don't go away. Hey, welcome back. Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. Rush Limbaugh, the EIB network. I got some emails. Why didn't you kept teasing you were talking about Hillary yesterday? You never got to it. I admit that was not good. Because I don't tease. I don't tell you something's coming up with no intention of it coming up just to hook you here. I don't have to hook anybody anyway. This program is compelling enough without me employing usual, typical, broadcast, cheap tricks. Hillary bores me. She has bored me for the longest time. I mean, if you want the definition of has-been, she's it. If you want the definition of overblown, never was going to be anything, she's it. So now her book is coming out today, and they've already marked it down. Did you know this? 40%. I mean, now that's it's standard for books that are thought to be bestsellers to have 25% off plastered on the covers. It's not unusual. 40% is unusual. I mean, that's because her first book, they gave her her most recent book, not her first, most recent. They gave her a $14 million advance, and it sold 275,000 copies. So that means it sold about 70,000 because Hillary and her buds bought 200,000. So it was a bomb. And then when she did her book signing, nobody showed up because Hillary, unlike Trump and many other public figures, has no personal connection. Even with the people that voted for her, there is no personal investment in her. She, at best, represented the symbolism of the first female president, but she's not likable. She's not charismatic. She's Nurse Ratched and such. So she she couldn't draw 20,000 people at an arena like Trump did 5 times a month. She couldn't draw 2,000. I got to take a break. Here we have the audio. Grab audio soundbite number 21. Back to this Martin Sheen. I want you to hear this. He was on the Tavis Smiley Show Friday on PBS. And the question, what is it about the story that we're writing at this moment, Mr. Sheen, that caused us to turn on immigrants if we're a nation of immigrants?
There is not a nation between Mexico and Panama that has not been affected by the United States, either militarily, economically, or outright colonialized, all of Central America. Most of these people are coming from these countries. The war in El Salvador, for example, so many hundreds of thousands of Salvadorians fled that war. We were supporting this very conservative right-wing, basically military dictatorship all those years until it was finally a peace accord was achieved. The same thing in Nicaragua. We invaded that country how many times in the last century and in this century, and controlled their governments, controlled their economy. So all of the immigrants that are in the country from those countries and whose children came with them as tiny ones, and some that have been born here, probably would not be here in such numbers if it hadn't been for our involvement in their countries in this hemisphere.
See? I mean, I do not make this stuff up. They are coming because we've made them poor. They are coming because we've stolen from them. We've dominated them economically, politically, socially. We've given them no choice but then to come here, where they're essentially looking for what we stole from them so they can take it back. It's kind of like the same thinking that goes behind how did the rich get rich? They stole it from the poor. That's what they say Reagan's trickle-down economics was. Well, the rich get rich on the backs of the poor. I've never understood the math of that. How does anybody get rich taking from the poor? But people fall for it. Now, in this case, why is there poverty in the world? Why is there poverty in Central America? By the way, we didn't invade Nicaragua. The Soviet Union was attempting to establish another Cuba there. That's what the Sandinista and the Contra thing was all about. During the Reagan years, we were trying to prevent a Soviet client state, another one in our hemisphere, in Nicaragua. Daniel Ortega was their henchman. We didn't invade anything. The Soviets, invaded our hemisphere, and we were simply defending ourselves. But the reason there is poverty in the world, folks, is because of the unequal distribution of capitalism. But people like Martin Sheen thinks that there's not enough communism, that capitalism is to blame, because capitalism's unfair. Capitalism is where America is what America is. And look at America. America's the richest place in the world. He doesn't see that, well, maybe if we had a more equal distribution of capitalism, people in Central America wouldn't need to come here because their countries would be economically growing and sufficient and so forth. Don't see it that way at all. See us as the enemy, see us as the culprit, and this defines the American left today, and certainly the American leftist radicals. And it's one of the many reasons that the Democrat Party is going to continue to lose elections. In fact, I have a piece of Selena Zito, one of our favorite columnists / writers. She lives in Pittsburgh. She's written for Pittsburgh newspapers. She gets her columns published in the New York Post. And what she did during the 2016 campaign was go to the areas of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Ohio, which everybody had long thought were just Democrat Party strongholds. And she found overwhelming support for Donald Trump in these red states. It fascinated her. She wanted to find out why. She did find out why. She wrote about it. It turned out that her writing and her theories coincided with the election result. And the upshot of it is not that people voting for Trump in the presidential election like Republicans so much, is that they don't like the Democrats at all. The Democrats are driving away what used to be their base, the blue-collar and white-collar working class. The Democrats are driving away with their social justice stuff and anti-American talk. They believe that most of the people like them think that America is so deeply flawed that liberalism in the Democrat Party is needed to fix it, to perfect it. And most people don't want to hear this about their country every day and every time some Democrat opens their mouth. Like Dianne Feinstein was interviewing confirmation hearings for a Catholic female judicial nominee and just accused her, because she is Catholic, of having religious dogma, and she feared by looking at her writings and her speeches that she would impose her Catholicism on the nation before she would enforce the laws, and it was no such thing. And I'm thinking, dogma? You, Dianne Feinstein, are worried about dogma because your nominee before you is a Catholic, and she thought nothing. I don't even think, to be honest, I think the questions are written by her staff, and I think she does her best to read them, but I'm not sure. Maybe an order of fries short of a Happy Meal in there, but the bottom line is she nevertheless went on this assault, and Dick Durbin joined her. And as though Catholics and Christians represent the greatest threat to this country because of their religious morality. And the more they do this, the more they're just marginalizing themselves with people outside of both of the coasts. It's why the Democrats are having trouble raising money, although I think we're in a shift on that. And, money is the mother's milk of politics. It's always been. But the way the two parties are shaping up, I don't know that, money is always going to matter. Don't misunderstand me here. But the differences between the two parties is going to be so stark here. On the one hand, you're going to have, and the Republicans have a little bit of an identity problem now because they don't really like Trump. And they don't want what Trump is to become the definition of the Republican Party. But they haven't done a good job of defining what the Republican Party is. They have eschewed a basic conservative agenda because the drive-by media criticism of conservatism scares them and intimidates them. But the Democrats are gone full four to the left. It's practically communism on their agenda now, and they proudly articulate it. Don't use that word. They don't describe it that way, but that's what they're offering. Never-ending government, total investment in government, turn your life over to government. You can't do it, government can. Let government do it all. Government's where justice is. Government's where fairness is. Government's where sustainability is. Government's where equality is. And the other side is going to be anywhere close to that. And I don't know that the Democrats can raise enough money to spread a message that is essentially extreme liberalism, socialism / communism, and have it matter outside of the strongholds they already have. So they're going to keep losing elections, but not because the country prefers Republicans. It's because the country is so willing to reject Democrats, so eager to. And Trump's election is the first sign of that. Now, the frustrating thing about this is the opportunity the Republicans are squandering. Never before. This chance is never going to come along again. They have the White House, the House and the Senate, and the ability to nominate judges to the Supreme Court and get them confirmed. This opportunity is once in a lifetime and certainly once in a generation. They're squandering it. They're squandering it because of this petty disagreements they have with Trump. Trump's an outsider. They don't want Trump to succeed. The establishment's got to continue to rule the day. Trump's a pig. Trump's this. We can't afford. Our donors don't like Trump. The Chamber of Commerce doesn't like Trump, so we can't help Trump. In the meantime, they're squandering the greatest opportunity they've ever been given because the nation is finally having its fill of Democrats. Now, you won't see evidence of that because the media will never report that. The media will never create that picture for you. You have to look at other signs. Failing box office, NFL ratings down, more and more people being taken out of the public school system, being homeschooled. All of the signs of the American population rejecting wild, madcap liberalism are everywhere, but it's not reflected in the media, so they don't know it. It's like the point made last week, why they still can't believe they lost the election, because all of their big data analysts told them it was going to be a landslide. Hillary still cannot come to grips with the fact that she lost, because everybody she relies on told her she was going to win in a landslide. All of the polls, all the big data analysts, such as Nate Silver at 538, all these people crunching all of these numbers with all of these predictions. Hillary with an 82.8% chance to win. Hillary with a 79.7% chance to win. Trump with a 20.1% chance to win. They believed it. The traditional polls had her winning in a landslide. 7 o'clock election night. Still thought it was going to happen. We all know what did happen. So they believe what they see in the mainstream media. The mainstream media is not reflecting what's happening in the country in terms of the far left agenda being rejected. But it is happening, and the signs are everywhere. And what the Democrats are doing is going further left. They think the message is not getting out, so they're getting even more extreme. This opportunity is being blown. The Republicans have no way of capitalizing on this. They do. They're just unwilling to do it. Frankly, folks, as a political savant, analyst, and observer, this is one of the most mind-boggling periods. because I've been doing this for 30 years. The circumstances that I've been hoping for and advocating are happening, and not a thing is being done to triumph over it, to maximize it, and to use it. This could be, if the Republicans played this right, this could lead to the beginning of the Democrat Party being dormant for 25 years. I'm talking about electorally. I'm not talking about public relations. As long as the media is who they are, the country's perception day in and day out is going to be Republicans are racist, bigots, sexist, homophobes, that Trump's a pig, white supremacists, Nazis, KK. That's what the media is going to tell every day. But the reality on the ground in the country is not that at all. It even adds more to the opportunity that the Republicans are squandering. And it wouldn't take much. All it would take, repeal and replace Obamacare, build the wall, and get started in earnest on tax reform. And if those things, with the Republican Party joining Trump to do it, get rid of Chuck and Nancy, don't let them play in this, send them over to where they belong in the Democrat Party in the ash heap, and just get those three things done or get started seriously on them, and you would not believe the benefits that were redound both to Trump and the Republican Party. But the Republican Party doesn't want to do it with Trump in the White House because they don't want Trump being given credit as an outsider for being able to come in and do things the establishment hasn't been able to do in 15 or 20 years. Quick time out. Much more when we get back. Don't go away. All right, look, I need to apologize just a little bit. Hillary is drawing a crowd, apparently. Her book is What Happened, and she's blaming Comey. She's blaming Russia. She's blaming WikiLeaks. She's blaming Facebook. She's blaming fake news. She's blaming voter ID laws. She blames sexism and misogyny for losing. Nate Silver, the big data analyst who had her alternately winning between 70% of the time, 90% chance of winning, has now come out and said she ran the most negative campaign in history. Well, if she was doing that, why was she forecast to win 90%? At any rate, I must humbly apologize. There is a line of about 100 people outside what looks to be a flea bag bookstore in Manhattan. Hundreds of Hillary Clinton fans packed into the Barnes & Noble Union Square this morning ahead of a book signing by the vanquished presidential contender. He arrived with Alan Holland from Long Island. Got up at 3 a.m. to catch a 3:45 train to Manhattan to see his Democrat hero. He arrived outside the bookstore 5 a.m., a full 6 hours before Clinton was slated to appear, only to find himself number 200 in the line. This is considered big. 200. Probably that many people try to get into the store every day anyway. 200 people. Die-hard Hillary Clinton fans turn out in hundreds is the headline. If hundreds showed up for Trump, it would be designated the biggest failure, and they do a series of stories of what happened to Trump. Why has he lost it? Anyway, we'll get back to Hillary. There's a couple things that happened, and I want to get this done. They're hilarious. Well, not hilarious. I need to dial that back. But ground was broken last night on ESPN. It was Monday Night Football. Game 2 started at 10:15 Eastern. It was the Chargers and the Denver Broncos. And for the first time, they had a female play-by-play announcer named Beth Mowins. And they teamed her with Rex Ryan, who has the toe fetish, the former coach of the New Jersey Jets. And this is history. So I was watching it. Me in my hearing. I had the captioning on, and I heard the announcers, but I'd forgotten that they were going to use a female play-by-play last night. And I kept saying the captioning said Rex, and I said, who's Rex? I said, Rex. I figured out it was Rex Ryan. Anyway, here's how it sounded. This is just a setup for what's coming.
We welcome you to Monday Night Football, where here in Denver, it's 47 straight years of sellouts and another packed house expected tonight in the Mile High City for the Broncos and the Los Angeles Chargers as they start out the new season on the road. And we welcome you to Denver. I'm Beth Mullins, along with Rex Ryan.
All right, that's pretty cool. Female announcer, play-by-play, ESPN, NFL, groundbreaking. I'm all for it. Fine and dandy. She's pretty good. By reputation, I've never heard her do a game, but they say she's pretty good. But they brought over a sideline reporter last night. I'm not laughing. His name is Sergio Dip. And they imported him from ESPN Deportes, which is the Spanish language version, and they put him on as the sideline reporter.
It's a pleasure to be with you guys here on the field from up close, just watching Coach Vance Joseph from here. You watch him now on the screen. This diversity in his background is helping him a lot tonight. Quarterback at Colorado, defensive back in the NFL, and here he is having the time of his life this night, making his head coaching debut.
Because he has a lot of diversity in his background. Okay? And then after the game, the guy was, they panned it. People making fun of the guy said, who is this guy? Why did he have, this is embarrassing. This guy doesn't know how to do his job. So after the game, the guy was in tears talking about diversity and immigration.
It's been a couple of hours now trying to digest.
Wait a sec. Don't play it. Don't play. We don't have time, folks. I've got to take a break. I misread the clock here by 1 minute, but I promise to get to this. Don't go away. Hang on. I just have one question, folks, about Beth Mowins in the ESPN booth. If they wanted real diversity, they put me in there. But never happened. How can any self-respecting, caring woman stand by as these players risk concussion and brain injury for our enjoyment? Just beyond the pale anymore. Yeah, greetings to you once again, music lovers, thrill seekers, conversationalists all across the fruited plain. Time for Broadcast Excellence, hosted by me, your guiding light, Rush Limbaugh, here at the Limbaugh Institute. We are on the left coast this week because of the situation involving power and phone lines at the EIB Southern Command. Telephone number 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. And folks, I really have to apologize about the clock situation here. We had to make a mad dash, and this move was not contemplated at all. And the last soundbite I tried, I thought I had a minute and a half instead of 30 seconds, and it's my bad, and it's very unprofessional, and I apologize profusely for it. So what I want to do is go back and play these two sound bites back to back and explain to you what people, I mean, this has become the talk of as much of what ESPN has been doing lately, in their effort to somehow reach a majority of Americans by going diverse and whatever they think it is that unites the country, it isn't. They're losing subscribers, they're losing audience, and they're losing money, and it's dragging down Disney. And it's all because they have an erroneous assumption of what it is that makes this country, what it is that constitutes the country, and how our greatness is defined. And diversity is not skin color, that's surface. But that's how they look at it. It's quotas. What's our number of African Americans? What's our number of Hispanic females? What's our number? And if the numbers match and it fits some population chart, then fine and dandy. But when you start getting into diversity of thought, there isn't any at ESPN, and there isn't any in the drive-by media, and that's why they're floundering. So they talk diversity and they preach it, but there isn't any. And in service of their definition of diversity, they are not finding the best. They're not finding the most talented. They're not finding the most professional. And as such, it's a disservice to the people they are charging a lot of money for to watch their network. They owe it to people to put the best they've got on, and their definition of the best does not include an assessment of talent. It includes their definition of diversity, which, and they say diversity is what made America great. It is not. Diversity had nothing to do with America's greatness. America's greatness had everything to do with morality and values and people's commitment to excellence and their desire to overcome tyranny, particularly religious tyranny. It had nothing to do with the way they looked or what their hair was or any of that. But that's how people, what makes America great is our diversity, and it's silly. And it's insulting to people to say that the only thing that matters about them is their skin color. The only thing that matters about them is their heritage. I mean, those are identifiable characteristics, or they have nothing to do with the kind of person someone is, unless people are talked into letting those things speak for them rather than who they are. And that's one of the inherent dangers of all of this. So in service to this definition of diversity, they went out and they've gotten people who they think will impress the audience. Look at ESPN. Look at the diversity. Look at how ESPN cares. Look at ESPN has really got their finger on the pulse. What they're not doing is finding the best. And that's what this is really all about. I mean, this poor guy, Sergio Dip, I mean, they're laughing at this guy today, but he had no business being put on the sideline last night. It wasn't his fault for taking the gig. It's what he wants to do, but he wasn't ready for it, and that's what people are commenting on. And he ended up in tears after the program because people on social media making so much fun of him. Whereas I guarantee he went in thinking he was going to be a hero on social media because of the varied diversity and things that they use on the left to define greatness. So here is his first report when they first went to him to introduce him to the audience, and he's doing his first sideline report. They brought him in from ESPN Deportes.
It's a pleasure to be with you guys here on the field from up close, just watching Coach Vance Joseph from here. You watch him now on the screen. This diversity in his background is helping him a lot tonight. Quarterback at Colorado, defensive back in the NFL, and here he is having the time of his life this night, making his head coaching debut.
Right, but the diversity poor Sergio Dip is talking about here is irrelevant to the guy getting a head coaching job. Got a head coaching job because somebody thinks that he can win football games and inspire players to win football games, not his diversity is. But this is the way this guy's been trained. So this is how it manifests itself. So the minute this happened, social media erupted, and they started laughing and making fun of this guy. I didn't even know this had happened because, of course, I watch with the sound down because I can't hear it. So I read about it first this morning in the New York Post. I said, okay, what's this? So I looked into it. We got the audio soundbite. After the game, poor Sergio Dip was in tears, continuing to talk about diversity and immigration when his job was football.
It's been a couple of hours now trying to digest what just happened to a 29-year-old Mexican guy like me. Born in Mexicali, Baja California, Mexico. But growing up in the American environment as a minority. A minority like head coaches Vance Joseph and Anthony Lynn. So what I wanted to do was to show some respect, making my debut as a minority on American national TV, the biggest stage out there, right, on the most heartfelt day in this great country made up by immigrants, and on some people's perspective, it all went wrong.
Well, now, what could have gone wrong? What does the guy think his job was? You can't blame this poor guy. Folks, this is how he's been educated. This is what's happening to your kids in school. This is what they grow up thinking is important. This is what they're being taught. This guy he thought he was hitting a home run last night. I guarantee you. I'm sure he rehearsed it. I'm sure he looked in the mirror and watched himself talking about the diversity of Vance Joseph, who happens to be African American. Bingo, minority, diversity, all I got to do is relate to this guy. Then he's taken to the woodshed for his performance. And how about this postgame? Well, it's been a couple hours now trying to digest What happened to a 29-year-old Mexican guy like me, born in Mexicali, Baja, growing up in the American environment, a minority. Use the minority word throughout this thing. Sergio, it's not why people tuned in to watch the football game last night. I guarantee a lot of people wanted to see if Rex Ryan was going to put his foot in his mouth, is why a lot of people were watching. But anyway, this is a manifestation of how all of this irrelevancy is being taught as important and defining. Vance Joseph's not even a person to this guy. He's a symbol. He's a example. And just because of that, not because of his work, he's inspirational to this guy. I feel for these kids that have been educated this way. They're missing out on so much. And they're going through life totally confused. I guarantee you poor Sergio hasn't the slightest idea what happened to him. I guarantee he thought it was a home run. I'm sure he thought he was going to be a social media hero. How many likes, how many thumbs up, how many people following, however these people on social media define it. And his world turned upside down last night after what he thought, I'm sure, was the greatest sideline report by an immigrant from Mexico ever. Hillary Clinton was on NPR this morning. Since we're with sound bites, let's just stick with this. And the host there was Rachel Martin, who said, although you say you still want a role in shaping the Democrat Party of the future, to which I say, please let her. I hope the Democrats do not kick her to the curb. I hope they keep her in the mix. But that's just me. You're still going to talk about issues, Hillary, that you find to be important, but there's some Democrats out there saying they don't want you to do that, that they think you should pack it in, that you've given it your best shot, but it is time for other young Democrats to climb the ladder and take over. Writing this book, they say you're opening old wounds. You're relitigating a past that is not going to matter. It's not moving the party forward. Have you reconciled that? That people might not want you as the party steps forward?
Well, they don't have to buy my book, and they can turn off the radio when they hear me talking. I'm not going anywhere. I have the experience. I have the insight. I have the scars that I think give me not only the right, but the responsibility to speak out.
That's made by the Arkansas broadbeam. It's a species that is native to Arkansas, that cackle. We first heard it, and it sounded just like Hillary laughing here. So that's what it is. So can you believe she was asked this question? Essentially, look, you're washed up, you're a has-been, and a lot of people in the party think you ought to just kind of pack it in and go away. No way. I'm sticking around. I've got the scars to prove it. And this book of hers that's out today, she blames Comey. I'm not making this up. She blames Russia. She blames WikiLeaks. She blames Facebook. She blames fake news. She blames voter ID laws and sexism and misogyny for losing. None of those are the reasons why she lost. And you all know what they are. She's not likable. She's not charismatic. And, people are offended by this sense of entitlement. I mean, why? What's Hillary Clinton done to be president? Seriously. I think you could say the same thing about Trump. But Trump went out and won. What has she done? Her biggest, the reason why the Democrats gave her a chance to run this thing twice, she should have gotten the picture in 2008. Because 2008, that's when she was guaranteed to be the nominee. And they had to pay her back. She saved her husband's presidency by sticking with him. She saved the Democrat Party by staying with her husband during all of those affairs he had in Arkansas and the White House. By sticking with him, she saved the party. They did owe her. They let her run first attempt at health care. She botched that. She botched the bimbo eruptions unit. She botched pretty much everything that politically. She was not smart. She was not adept. She's not the smartest woman in the world, but the image preceded her. So 2008 comes along, and what'd they do? They threw her overboard for the first option they got that they liked better, which happened to be Barack Hussein Obama. And she's sitting there She can't figure it out. It was hers. They told her it was hers. And then here comes this Obama guy, and she loses. So this was to be her year, 2016, and they rigged it this time. Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz of DNC rigged the primaries. There was no way that Crazy Bernie was going to win. That's the election scandal. That's what really happened. If you want to look at somebody affecting the outcome of election, look at what Hillary and Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz did. And this has all been uncovered by virtue of the leaks, the hacks of the DNC server. And even with a rigged election in the primary, she couldn't win when they all thought it was going to be in a landslide. So she's bitter, and she can't get over it. And I think, well, we've been through this. The reason she thought she was going to win, like the left, all these people, was that all the trusted sources they have told them she was going to win in a landslide and believed it. Still can't come to grips with it. Now this book, you know, she could go make a couple speeches at Goldman Sachs for, what, $250,000 each and earn as much as she's going to make doing these book signings. But Hillary lawyers face bar sanctions over deletion of Clinton emails. This is a little bit of a stunning story because you don't see this kind of news about the Clintons. Maryland Circuit Judge Paul Harris refused to halt a state bar investigation of 3 attorneys alleged to have assisted Hillary Clinton in the deletion of thousands of emails in the scandal that rocked last year's presidential race. The lawyers are David Kendall, Cheryl Mills, and Heather Samuelson. Now, nothing's going to happen to them because of the time frame. They'll get a slap on the hand. But what they did really was far worse than that. Andy McCarthy, my old buddy at National Review, last October had a column arguing these attorneys should have been treated as suspects in a wider investigation of the destruction of Clinton's emails from her unauthorized server. But the lawyers got immunity. The lawyer, and then they destroyed Cheryl Mills' laptop, destroying some evidence. The FBI last week, a couple weeks ago, we didn't release the emails. We didn't think anybody cared. We didn't think there was not a compelling interest. Nobody cared. So now the lawyers are facing what will end up being minor consequences. But in the end, folks, it's good. Hillary continues to be the face of the Democrat Party. She refuses to go away. From our perspective, it's all good in any which way you slice it. A quick timeout. We'll come back, and I'm going to get started on the phones. People have been patiently waiting, and we'll do that right after this. And welcome back. We start on the phones in Katy, Texas. This is William. I'm glad you called, sir. Welcome. How are you doing?
Oh, good, Rush. Mega Dittos, 1990. So I'm tuning into the football game last night, and my wife walks through. She tries to act interested in it, and then she stands there and watches TV and says, "Is that a girl announcer?" And I said, "I don't know."
Wait. Hold it. Just a minute. Your wife said, "Is that a girl announcer?" Not, "Is that a woman announcer?"
Yeah, you know, she says, "Is that a girl announcer?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And she said, "That's weird. That's creepy." And then she walked out of the room. Well, I started thinking about it. You know, women that don't really watch football like guys do, they expect to hear a certain thing when they expect to hear the Howard Cosell or this or that.
Wait a minute. Your wife heard, is that a girl on the game? And it didn't make her want to watch?
No, it made her, she said, "That's weird. That's creepy."
And what'd you say?
I just kind of laughed at it because, you know, I've always kind of thought that it was kind of weird when they do that, but I wanted to watch the game, basically.
And did you?
Yeah, I watched it.
Was it a distraction to
great.
have a female play-by-play voice or not?
You know what? Honestly, I'd rather have no announcers.
Well, they tried that once, and that didn't work. NBC tried that on a Saturday afternoon game in December. So I think it was the Miami Dolphins and the Jets, and they did an announcerless game as a test. And it obviously didn't go well because it's the only time that they did it. Anyway, I appreciate the call, William. Thanks much. Josh in Medford, Oregon, you're next. Great to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks.
You bet.
So I'm a psychology major at a university in Southern Oregon, and I am having some trouble with some of the professors who like to tell me what their sexuality is.
You mean you have professors who they insist on telling you what you mean, like whether they're gay or straight or bi or trans?
Yes. Yeah, they want to make the announcement. They want to make sure everybody knows. And if this was in a corporate situation, that would be sexual harassment. But they just want to, and it's usually sociology professors who want to put that information out there. And it's like, I'm ready to sue for sexual harassment. This is just really bothersome.
Well, why sexual harassment? What do you think they're doing by announcing their sexual orientation to you?
Well, I'm considering what would happen if a straight man announced that he was straight. He would be seen as,
well, in Oregon they might stone him.
Right. Yeah, they might. He'd be seen as maybe advertising, or I don't know, like he's just some kind of D-bag. But
so you're questioning. You want to know why they're doing it.
I want to know what I can do to stop it.
You can't.
It's really bothersome.
You can't stop it. You can't. They're going to keep doing it until you love it. That's the whole point.
That's never going to happen.
They are, well, I know, but I mean, that's the objective, is to force it. You will, Josh, you will not only like it, you will love it. That's the attitude behind this. They're forcing it on you. They want that to be their identity. It's it's how they want to be known, and they're demanding, using their authority over you as the professor, demanding that you accept it, and then further demanding that you like it. Be back, folks. Thanks, Josh, for the call. More on this in a moment. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Rush Limbaugh on the left coast for we don't know how long, probably the balance of the week. Starting to get some good news reports out of the recovery efforts in our part of South Florida, which may enable us to resume our normal operations at the beginning of next week. But remember, folks, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where I am, as long as I'm here. It doesn't matter where that is. So we'll be here regardless. Hillary Clinton, so cocksure of victory, she bought a second home next door to her Chappaqua estate for White House staff. She admitted this to Jane Pauley, CBS Sunday Morning interview. Said she was so confident of victory that she bought a second home next door to her estate in Chappaqua to accommodate White House staff during her expected presidential retreats. $1.16 million, 3-bedroom ranch-style home. 3-bedroom home for staff? How many people can... 3-bedroom home for staff when she... That's not very much, if you ask me. New York Post says that they reported September 2016 the house was supposed to be a weekend retreat for Chelsea Clinton's family. As Jane Pauley and Hillary walked around the home Clinton had bought for her staff, Pauley commented, "You specifically bought this house for a reason." Clinton said, "Yeah, I did. And this was to be, well, I know a lot about what it takes to move a president, and I thought I was going to win." I know what... So she's got a house that they don't need, and I'll guarantee you who's going to end up using it. Bill Clinton and the Energizer. Bill Clinton, and probably with Hillary's understanding. Put it on the market now, who knows. Let's go back to hurricane news because there are some updates. Christians, according to the Daily Caller, Christians are providing more aid to hurricane victims than FEMA right now. But look, I don't want anybody to misunderstand this. This is simply because FEMA is a massive bureaucracy, and no matter how well they're doing, it takes a while to get everything going. And but have you seen the stories, folks? Have you seen these stories all over cable news about how great the Trump administration is doing with FEMA in response to both Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma? Have you seen those stories? I mean, yeah, I know they're not there. Those stories, you don't find them. There are no stories that are detailing the competency of FEMA and the first responders. You're just not seeing them. And you won't. There will not be any significant news stories that praise the Trump administration efforts of this or anything else. Now, the Daily Caller is saying that Christian nonprofits have outdone FEMA and provided the vast majority of the relief aid to victims so far, both Harvey and Irma. Faith-based religious groups are responsible for providing nearly 80% of the aid delivered thus far to communities with homes devastated by the recent hurricanes. And this is according to USA Today. I mean, they're the drive-by media. An alliance of nonprofits called the National Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, 75% of which are faith-based, has helped FEMA distribute relief assistance to communities hit by disasters and assisted families in navigating government aid programs to begin the process of rebuilding. Greg Forrester, the CEO of the National Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster, said about 80% of all recovery happens because of nonprofits, and the majority of them are faith-based. Now, the faith-based people need FEMA, though, to get through all the government red tape. It's a collaborative effort here. I don't want anybody to misunderstand. But one thing that is, in most cases, it's not true in all cases, but in most cases, individual entrepreneurial efforts are always going to be faster, speedier, and more efficient than any bureaucratic endeavor, whether it's a government bureaucracy or even a corporate bureaucracy. The more people involved in having to sign off on every decision, the longer it's going to take to get all of that. And people that don't have to wait on such decisions, who can just get going, are always going to outpace bureaucracies. And that's true not just in disaster relief, but just in the daily conduct of business or just daily affairs of anything. And it always is on display here. You know, it's been said, but it's true. You're finding out the real America. And you know who you're not seeing in any of these relief efforts? You know who you're not seeing? You're not seeing Black Lives Matter. They're not passing anything out. And you're not seeing Antifa or Antifa, whatever they call themselves, these anarchist, black masked, ragtag bunch of protest. You're not seeing any of them. You're not seeing any. You're not seeing Code Pink. You don't see all of those women that were protesting Trump wearing the vagina hats. You don't see them out there. You don't see any of those groups whatsoever. And those are the groups we're told they are the social justice warriors. They are the people with compassion. They are the people that have grievances. You don't see them. They are nowhere to be found. What you're seeing is the real America, who America really is, the kind of people that make this country work. That's what you see in the immediate aftermath. And even during the disaster itself, but especially during the aftermath, that's who you see. And the fact that they're faith-based, undeniable. And that's going to offend a lot of people. Because the attack on faith-based people is constant and ongoing. But they don't care. They just get in, get it, do what's necessary, and then get out. But you don't see all of these compassionate leftist groups that have a monopoly on caring and a monopoly on compassion. You don't see them out there. Not helping. You don't see them out there helping to pass out supplies, food, what have you. It's an interesting observation. Who's next? Give me a green line. Where are we going next on the phones? We have time to squeeze one in here. That'd be Hendersonville, North Carolina. Aaron, great to have you, sir. Welcome to the program. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Rush. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
Just real quickly, I always agree with you 100% of the time. But today, I just disagreed a little bit with, you said you felt bad for the guy. on calling the plays on the field. And
yes, Sergio Dip. I did say I feel a little
Correct.
sorry for the guy because he was thrust into a position he's not qualified for yet.
Well, that may be true, but
It's true. Don't doubt me
to
on
the
this.
liberal
Sergio had no
ideology.
business doing this.
Right. I mean, but he subscribed to the liberal ideology, and the first thing, I mean, you always say we want to watch football to do what? To get away from reality.
Right. We
And,
want to watch football,
you know,
to watch football, to fantasize, to pretend we can be doing it, whatever. Root for our team.
Exactly, precisely. And the first thing this guy does is get on there and he talks about, I mean, it sounded so insane to hear this guy say, and this guy's diversity is really helping him out. It sounded so dumb. And that's how the liberal, the whole thing sounds.
Yeah, but guess what, Aaron? The
liberalism
guy was
in a
destroyed. Everybody on social media, the guy was destroyed by people who agree with you about this.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's just my point. I mean, I don't feel bad for the guy at all. He subscribes to the dumb liberal ideology. So, hey, he gets what he deserves.
Well, okay.
I'm sorry.
Now, I understand that. Don't feel sorry for the guy. He believes in what he was doing. He believes in what he was saying. He said what he said. He meant to say it. It backfired on him. Don't feel sorry for him. But I do. I feel it's not just for him, though, Aaron. You realize how many millions of young people have been mal-educated, ill-educated like this kid? Young man, I'm sorry. He really thought, I am sure he rehearsed this. I know how these TV people do things first. Folks, they are, you don't know ego until you have met a TV person. They stand in front of the mirror. I mean, they walk by a pane of glass and they'll stop and look at themselves in it. I mean, if they're walking down a street, you know, there's a big showroom at a store, they'll stop and they'll look at their hair. And it doesn't matter, men, women, they all do it. Because their appearance is everything. If you're on TV, your appearance is everything. So I'm sure this guy rehearsed in front of the mirror. And I'm sure he rehearsed with people who were giving him high fives. And away, Sergio Otis, such a unique take, talking about the diversity of the head coach. Yeah, that he was a running back and he's a quarterback and he's African-American and he can, and you, Sergio, you a Mexican immigrant yourself with your own diverse, people are going to love it, Sergio. So he was, I'm sure, encouraged and applauded. And people, I mean, don't doubt me on this. People at ESPN knew what the guy was going to say. They're not going to throw anybody out there, first time especially, not knowing what somebody's going to say. It's going to have been rehearsed, scripted, one where it may not be on teleprompter, but they had a general idea. And they thought it was going to be great. This is the point. Now, Aaron here thinks, hey, you make your bed, you lay in it. And I understand that. But Sergio wasn't born with this cockamamie set of beliefs and values. He was raised with them and educated with them, and he's not alone. And there are all kinds of people who are, it's like the last caller. Let me look at the clock here. Oops. Let me take a break. I'm not teasing you. I just got to take a break. We'll come back, and I'll remember the last caller who talked about his professors who are forcing on him and the others in the class their sexual identity or orientation or what have you. It's all part of the same thing. It's the inculcation. It is the I don't want to call it propaganda. It's not quite that, but it's close. Anyway, stick with us. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Here's the thing about Sergio Dip. Do you realize what happened to this guy? If you strip it all away, he got what I would consider to be his first real dose of education with this experience that he engaged in. I guarantee you, the last thing he ever thought would happen is the reaction he got. I'm telling you, he was going to get gold stars or whatever they pass out to kids now, trophy or what have you. And this, I don't know, it's been ridicule or the mocking or laugh. I guarantee you, Sergio hasn't encountered that. Youngsters are shielded and protected from that kind of mean-spirited extremist behavior. But as we all know, social media is a sewer. And mixed in with the good there is really a never-ending parade of human debris. And Sergio's hearing it from everybody. And it's the first dose of reality that Sergio probably has ever had in his life. This is why I feel sorry for these people. In addition to feeling sorry, they pose a great problem, folks. They're going to grow up. These people are going to eventually assume leadership positions throughout our culture. It happens. Generational shifts happen all the time. So the more education like this that Sergio Dip can get, the better. Now, as for what I was going to say about this, the guy Josh, who is faced with these professors and professorettes who are forcing their sexual orientation on him. That's classic liberalism. I don't mean to sound cliched here. I mean, the term liberal has become even a cliche, but call it leftism or socialism or whatever. But these are the people we were talking about yesterday. The groupthink, the consensus. You will agree, you will accept, you will like, you will love, or else. And you see what happens to people outside the cocoon. And so this is a warning. With these professors, or I am whatever they tell you they are, it's a warning. You better accept it. The normal reaction, why do you have to ram this down our throat? We don't care. Okay, you're trans. Okay, you're bi or you're gay. We don't care. Why are you forcing this? And it's a way to provoke. It is a way to, with the authority that a professor holds in the classroom over students, it's a way to force acceptance. But it's also rooted in identity politics. This is one of the most harmful things happening to our culture, the whole concept of identity politics and grievance politics, because what it does is create victims. And there's a political party that benefits from victims, and a political party that promotes grievance politics and identity politics, the Democrat Party. And they hope to benefit by more people feeling aggrieved with America or being victimized by America. Once you accept that you're a victim, well, the rest is easy, because nothing's your fault. You have a built-in excuse for failure. It wasn't your fault. You're a victim of something. You're a victim of the white supremacy. You're a victim of white privilege. You're a victim of the patriarchy. You are a victim of corporate greed. You're a victim of whatever. But at the same time, you're also hopeless. Because once you're a victim, you're abandoning self-reliance. Because you have, as a victim, you have to believe there's nothing you can do to alleviate your situation other than to get mad and other than to raise hell and then start demanding social justice or whatever it is. And you join the crowd, you join the mob, and you feel good. You're doing something, except you're sitting there as an average failure. And the Democrat Party comes along and wants to reward that average failure by promising that they'll fix it for you, or that they'll get even with the people mistreating you, get even with the people victimizing you. And identity politics is a hidden way also of attacking the majority. Now, the majority can be racial, it can be a numerical majority, it can be a way of thinking. But whatever minority membership, victimization is, that's the place to be. As far way too many young people think so. You don't want to be among the oppressors. You don't want to be in the majority. You want to be with these people making life unfair. So all it's doing is dividing the people in the country. And the media, which shapes a lot of public perception, is always on the side of the victims. Because the media thinks what they're doing is speaking truth to power. That they're holding the powerful accountable. Except when the powerful are Democrats and liberals, they don't do that. They join them. The only people they hold accountable are people that disagree with them. So it's, I hope this guy at the classroom in Oregon has the guts to withstand the assault and deal with it and still get a passing grade. Quick timeout. Back with much more right after this. Don't go away. Let me give you another example here of Sergio Dip-ism. young people and how they're being educated, what happens when they become adults and enter professions implementing the stuff they have been taught. Headline details coming. M&Ms are going to promote wind power in a new TV ad campaign. M&Ms promoting wind power. Hang on. Be right back. And welcome back once again, music lovers and thrill seekers, conversationalists all across the fruited plain. Broadcast excellence, Rush Limbaugh, and the EIB network. We are now into our 30th year of broadcast excellence. Started it on the 1st of August. Okay, poor Sergio Dip and what happened to him and his eye-opening awakening to the fact that the world does not see things the way he thinks they do. In other words, people were not watching that football game last night and thinking of the diversity of the head coaches or players. They tuned in to watch a football game. They wanted one team to win, the other team to win, doesn't matter. They wanted to see a good game. They weren't at all. The people turning in, the last thing on their minds was race, sexual orientation, sexual desire. Well, not sexual desire, because that's a special. But they wanted to watch a football game. They didn't want to be preached to about how some head coach got where he is because of diversity and all this sort of stuff. And they didn't want to hear the sideline reporter compare himself to the head coach. But Sergio believed totally differently. He thought he was hitting a home run. Now, this stuff, I have been concerned. I love America. I want it to continue to be the greatest place on earth. I want everybody in this country to be able to maximize the opportunity that liberty and freedom give them. And it's liberty and freedom that are under assault by these people that are demanding conformity in speech, in behavior, demanding conformity and acceptance. And we see it manifesting itself. I don't know how Sergio is. He's probably in his 20s, maybe early 30s. But he's part of the millennial generation, and then the iGen is what follows them. And they're going to grow. They're going to get educated. They're being told. They're being educated. It's being drilled into them that America is destroying the planet, that American corporations are destroying the planet, that fossil fuels are destroying the planet, when in truth, oil and other fossil fuels is the reason for the rising standard of living, for the creation of wealth, for the opportunity that people in this country have and around the world. It's the climate change left that is keeping people poor. Let's take an imaginary African country. Let's call it San Cordoba. And San Cordoba has a per capita income of $14 a week. And their people that live there are in absolute poverty, and their government is a tyranny. They've got some general that's the president and the commandante or whatever, and people just have nothing. But somebody discovers oil. Somebody discovers a big pool of oil underneath San Cordoba. What does Greenpeace do? What does Al Gore do? What environmental wackos? They come in there and they forbid them from getting it. Because getting it will pollute, getting it will destroy, it will upset the eco-balance in the ocean off the coast of San Cordoba. And so the means of a rising standard of living in a country coming out of poverty will be unavailable to them, because powerful forces, the UN will be in there demanding at San Cordoba do not, because they're trying to phase out fossil fuels. Have you seen all these automobile manufacturers now promising? Who was it that Aston Martin said by 2030 or 2040 they won't have any more internal combustion engine cars, and that caused an avalanche of other companies announcing the same thing. In first, it's asinine. It's simply asinine, and they're believing a market for these things exists that doesn't. If people that bought Teslas and Priuses weren't subsidized to buy them, do you think they'd be selling the way they are? If the government wasn't subsidizing Tesla to the tune of $5 billion, do you think they would be making as many as they are? Market may be there for them someday, but the market isn't there. It's being forced on us under the belief that the internal combustion engine is destroying the climate and thus destroying the world. And that leads to Stephen Hawking and these other clowns that we got to abandon Earth if we're going to survive. We got to colonize an asteroid or Mars, folks. We aren't close to even going back to the moon, much less going to Mars and colonize. We're not even close to this. But kids are being educated with this. It's being inculcated, it's being forced into them, and they all believe this stuff. And it's going to have an impact as they grow older. I mean, some of the things they're being taught actually is near criminal. The internal combustion engine and the discovery and market uses of petroleum products, the free flow of oil at market prices has been the difference maker. And we have done a better job than any nation in the world cleaning up our messes in terms of our pollution and so forth. And to tell people that the primary fuel and engine of prosperity is a culprit in destroying the planet is near criminal. But it continues apace. And so these kids grow up, and then they go to college, and they get degrees in PR or marketing, advertising, and then they get hired. And then you get a story like this. This is from the businessinsider.com. It's out of London. M&M's are going to promote wind power in new TV ad campaign. Chocolate brand M&M's will promote wind power in a global advertising campaign set to run later this year and into 2018. Now, hang on. Chocolate and pet food giant Mars Incorporated, they own M&M's, announced a $1 billion, wait for it, here's the word, sustainability. That's how you own millennials. Tell them it's sustainable and they'll support it. Tell them it's not sustainable and they'll oppose it. Whatever it is. Sustainable sex, they love it. Sustainable energy, they love it. Sustainable sewage, it's even great. Unsustainable doesn't work. So it's in every story that is appealing to and attempting to capture millennials. A $1 billion sustainability drive aiming to do its bit to tackle climate change. So here's a bunch of what's happened here. A bunch of indoctrinated millennials now working at an advertising agency somewhere and maybe at Mars have grown up and they've been taught this stuff, and now they're implementing it into their day-to-day work. And we wonder why more conservative messages can't break through the conservative message of self-reliance and rugged individualism and be the best you can be. The old standby recipe for success that's laughed at and mocked now. Sustainability is the dog whistle. When you see the word sustainability, understand that it is, here I go with the cliche again, but it's liberalism behind it. And liberalism is not good, folks. As part of the plan, Mars M&M's brand will champion the power of renewable energy and highlight the need for action in addressing climate change. Why are they doing this? Well, among other things, they believe that a majority of Americans believe that climate change is real and caused by man, and they believe that America is destroying the climate. So they want to sell M&Ms. They think the way to do it is to really, they don't know that a minority of people believe that most people think it's caca, but the young millennials and others in these positions, the advertising agencies, the marketing departments convince the people otherwise, and they might do market research, and you can get whatever you want with a market research survey, depending on who you talk to. Wind energy, renewable wind energy. There's no such thing as renewable, number one, and the real definition of the word. But renewable wind energy. Why is over half the state of Florida without electricity after more wind than they've ever seen in 5 years went through the state in a day and a half. If wind energy is the answer, why wasn't it harnessed? There's a lot of wind up there. And look what that wind did. It destroyed windmills. It destroyed everything in its path in certain places. But, I mean, that is one of the first observations that I came up with. All of this wind, why wasn't it harnessed? Why weren't they able to lasso that wind and put it somewhere? Because if wind can create energy to the where we don't need fossil fuels, how much energy did we just waste by not capturing? Why wasn't the hurricane welcomed? That's wind. Now, I'm being a little facetious, don't misunderstand. But I'm doing so to make a point. Mars, by the way, M&M Mars plans to launch the campaign during a UN General Assembly in New York later this month. This is how deeply enmeshed this issue has become. It's now thought by major corporations to be key and fundamental in selling candy, because it's believed that the buyers will appreciate Mars's social justice concerns and climate concerns and their sustainability drive, and therefore we should go out and buy M&Ms to thank Mars for doing everything they can to save the planet and save the environment with renewable wind energy. You can't point to me a single place on Earth of any size with a significant population that single-handedly can survive on wind. You cannot fly an airplane with wind. You cannot power cruise ships or cargo ships. You cannot. It doesn't exist. You cannot get an airplane off the ground with wind energy. What about propellers? No, propellers don't count, folks. That's an engine in there that's turning the propellers, not the wind. So, and it's the same thing with solar. By the way, how many solar panels were blown off roofs in the hurricane? Where are those solar panels now? How much damage did they? You know what? Those things become garbage. You have an environmental problem all by itself. No, folks, I'm not trying to sound cruel here. I'm just, this is what not going along with groupthink sounds like. This is what not following consensus sounds like. This is what, I'm the mayor of Realville, and in Realville, common sense rules. And what happens when these people get into positions? What happens when one becomes a 4-star general in the Army thinking this way? And it will happen. It's unavoidable. It will happen. It's affecting everything. It'll affect discipline. It'll affect, look at the things that are already being done military-wise to further the cause of social justice and so forth. So you've been warned. Just giving you a little tidbit. Here's another one. Is this the story? Let me put my glasses on here. No, but there's a story here about this. Yes. Let me see, what time is it? You have time for one more. This is from the UK Telegraph. I'll give you the headline. We'll talk about it later. We'll come back and get some phone calls. Inspirational robots to begin replacing teachers within 10 years. Now, will the robot tell you what its sexual orientation is? Will the robot tell you what its sexual preference is? And don't we already have essentially a bunch of robots teaching? Not all, but it is kind of robotic and similar and so forth. So there's that. Quick timeout. Much more, plus your phone calls coming right up after this. Don't go away. Talent on loan from God. Rush Limbaugh meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. Back to the phones. Matt in San Antonio. Welcome to the program, sir. How are you?
I am doing great, Rush, man. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, I just wanted to.
Sir.
I feel really bad for this poor sideliner, for this poor kid, because they're trying all this social experimentation in front of the wrong audience, and that's sports fans. And it's not that we don't like diversity, Rush. It's that we just don't care what color our running backs and quarterbacks are as long as they win. Because
exactly.
Championships are won on merit.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what their sexual orientation is. It doesn't matter where their parents came. It doesn't matter if they just play well, entertain us, get our minds off things, make us wish like we could do things that they can do. I know all of that. You're exactly right. But this is all part of the forcing everything on everybody. It's the groupthink. It's only going to get worse. It's going to continue happening.
Right. Sports is the ultimate free market. We don't care what color our coaches and players are. We just want them competent, and we hold our sideline reporters to the same standard.
Let me ask you this, though, Matt. You come to the sporting, and baseball, football, it doesn't matter. You don't care what the race of the players is, and you don't care about the mix, the diversity, and you don't care about you. They're your team. You want them to play well. You want them to win. But what happens to you if they keep talking about this stuff to you? If they keep, like somebody scores he comes from a racially mixed background. His father was 70% Mexican. His mother was 32% Romanian. Or however they do it, what effect is it going to have on you as a fan if they keep promoting this part of their agenda in it? They keep politicizing it to talk about their definition of diversity or how a kid was a victim and overcame this or that. What's the effect going to have on you as a fan?
Well, I think we're already starting to see that effect because ESPN's ratings are going right in the tank to the point where people of all colors, by the way, are losing their jobs. Diversity is actually costing jobs at ESPN.
That's a good point. Quotas and all that. Here's my point with this, and I appreciate the call very much. I can't tell you the number of people over the course of this program's life or my life who've said to me, Rush, I've never been a racist in my life, but they're turning me into one. I can't escape it. Everywhere I go, they're pounding it at me. They're telling me about it. They're talking to me about it. They're telling me how I ought to feel about it, or they're blaming me for something. And I've always found that fascinating, that people thought that they were not guilty of any of these bad thoughts or injustices, and yet they kept being pummeled with it. And now with white privilege as a sign of the cross for Dracula and courses in white privilege, I mean, they're taking people to whom race really hasn't mattered to a lot of people, and they're putting it front and center. And when they keep doing this in sports, I think he's right. I think they already are seeing evidence of the impact. It's not just Kaepernick. That's just an element of it, not just the protests of the flag. There are many, many factors. Sports especially, people don't care about the politics of it, and they don't want to have it preached to them. So the ESPN subscribers are way down in the millions, and it's having an effect on Disney. And there are all kinds of examples of the way this encroachment is happening. I mentioned that I played golf Saturday with a very famous Hollywood actor, both movies and TV. And there's a story. Hollywood's box office this summer's been a tank. So I asked this seasoned, grizzled veteran of the stage and the screen, I said, what do you think is the reason for it? I saw a story this morning that the management of various studios is blaming Rotten Tomatoes. He said, what do you mean? Well, Rotten Tomatoes is crowdsourced movie rating system. And so people, before they rent a movie on iTunes or go to watch one, they'll check the Rotten Tomatoes rating. That's people who've seen it, and it can affect whether they go see a movie or not. He said, that's bunk. I mean, there have been critics left and right in newspapers and TV for decades telling people whether a movie's bad or good. This is just, he thinks, he told me truthfully, he thinks that the decades of politicization of actors and actresses off the screen as well as in scripts is finally coming home to roost, because people have other options to watch. Now, do you realize millennials, I saw something, this is TV executives going to read this and weep. Most millennials, and I don't know what the percentage is, most millennials do not watch TV live. In other words, they don't watch whatever they watch when it's broadcast. They stream it later when they want to. Now, For decades, we've all predicted that's what TV was going to become, and it has, but the networks are not leading it. The networks are still stuck in the same old model that they've had. And that's going to have impact on advertising. But if kids don't mind watching a movie on a 5.5-inch screen, I have to tell you something. My first experience in a movie theater in 17 years was yesterday. Wow. You almost forgot to mention this. I was given a screening yesterday afternoon of the new movie American Assassin, which is based on the novel written by Vince Flynn, who became a very, very close and dear friend, he and his wife Lisa, from Minneapolis. I didn't know who Vince Flynn was till I read his first Mitch Rapp novel, and I remember raving about it here. And Vince was a great guy. He spent a lot of time, I didn't even know it, trying to find a way to get to me to thank me. And I wasn't aware of that. And I was out in Los Angeles one day I had to come out here to do the radio show. And my buddies over at 24 arranged the set visit. Went by there for 2 hours. They had this great presentation. I watched a little bit of the filming at 24, the original Kiefer Sutherland edition. And they had hired Vince as a consultant. He was there, and that's where I first met him. And he looks just like what you would think a special ops stud would look like. And he died in his 40s of prostate cancer and complications. And it was so sad. There's no pain with prostate cancer per se. And so there wasn't 40s. I mean, PSA tests, they tell you don't worry about that until you're 50 or 60. And he started to experience some pain, and that he went and checked it out. So they tried some revolutionary treatments, and he lived for a while, but it was just gone way too soon. And he'd written a lot of books, and they'd tried to get one made into a movie for 7 years, and this is it. And they were going to screen it for me Thursday last week in Palm Beach, and we had to scramble and get out of there. So they made it available to us yesterday afternoon at a theater here called iPic, Wilshire Boulevard. Now, I haven't been in a theater in 17 years, only because I need closed captioning to be able to understand what's being said. Time you add all the other noise, soundtrack, people chomping popcorn or whatever, it's impossible for me to get all the dialogue. So they had this little doodad that plugs in at the seat that was a little 4-inch LCD screen, LED, that had the closed captioning. So I'm watching this in the movie out of the corner of my eye. But I had never been in a theater. I'd read about them. I'd read that people go have dinner at the theater now because it's highly competitive. But I'd not seen this in operation. I walked in, there's the bar. Last time I was in a movie, that was illegal. You could have a bar in there. Couldn't serve adult beverages. And then they had waiters. And the seats were recliners, and they had tables, and there's a full menu. I mean, you could order a 925 bottle of Cabernet at the iPic Theater on Wilshire. And I'm just sitting there marveling at it, and I'm thinking, I should have gone to one of these. Even if I can't hear the movie, I should have gone to one of these to experience what this is. I don't mean to sound dazzled, but I was. It was the first time I'd seen it. I quickly caught it because, I'm Mr. High Tech, so none of this stuff intimidated me. I was just blown away by actually having seen it. And then they said, if you need anything during the movie, just hit that blue button. I said, what do you mean? Well, if you want more popcorn, you want a hot dog, you just hit the blue button. I said, well, do you stop the movie while you're delivering? No. Just the blue button will be here. And they were. And it was quite an experience. And the movie, the focal point was awesome. The character Mitch Rapp, everybody that's a fan of these books, that's a key element. And they found a great guy to be this. I was stunned. Look, I don't want to give anything away either, but there's something in this movie I've never seen before. The depiction of a nuclear explosion underwater is the most, I think, I've never seen one, but I'm guessing that this is the most closest to realistic portrayal of what that would look like. that I've ever seen. The movie's true to the novel. Its screenplay was, of course, not written by Vince, but they worked for a long time to get it made. And it really was fun. It's about an hour and 18 minutes, and it just zipped by. And it opens on the 15th. And I'm not telling you to go see it because it's payback for them giving me the screening or because it's Vince. It really is good. It's just a flat-out, good, old-fashioned, entertaining movie. And you know what? I know a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy with this. But there are 2 or 3 times in this movie where you think, you just know, that Mitch Rapp and the Babe are going to end up copulating in the sack, and it doesn't happen. They don't screw up the movie that way. And I'm not talking about it from a morality sense. I'm talking about it from a realistic sense. They've not put that gratuitous sex stuff in it. There's plenty of stuff for women, though. Don't misunderstand. I mean, I don't want to give it away, but the opening segment will have the women in the audience captivated for the rest of the picture. But there's nothing gratuitous in it, and I was thoroughly entertained, and I had such hopes for it because, you know, it's Vince's estate and it's his work, and I've had so many authors tell me that when their work ended up on screen, the compromises necessary were disappointing. And I don't think this would in any way disappoint Vince. I know it didn't disappoint Lisa. It's awesome. So this is what's the date today? This is the 12th. So it's Friday, 3 days. And the iPic Theater on Wilshire, $925 bottle of Cabernet. Check the email during the break. Hey, Rush, you haven't talked anything about the iPhone presentation. So what iPhone presentation? I told you, folks, that's not going to distract me. I'm a highly trained broadcast specialist focused on it. That stuff's going to be around after the program. Just tell me the date that it goes on. I want to see if it matches up with the rumors. Hey, I want to ask you a quick question here, since I already asked you the question. I'll come up with the question in a minute. Let me grab David in Knoxville, Tennessee. Welcome, sir. Great to have you on the program. How are you doing?
Hi, Rush. How you doing?
Very well, sir.
I was wondering, M&M Mars, if they're so concerned about saving the environment, why do they spend $20 to $30 million a year to sponsor a gas-guzzling race car in the NASCAR series?
You know, that's a great question. I didn't even know they did that.
Yeah, the number 18 owned by Coach Joe Gibbs, the number 18 driven by Kyle Busch.
No kidding. M&M's Mars is sponsoring one of those behemoths?
Oh, yeah, 4 miles to the gallon, 800 horsepower.
You know how this works? I'll tell you what, that's a great point. The way this works is this other campaign is designed to balance that and let them get away with doing both. Yes, we are sponsoring NASCAR. Yes, we are sponsoring. But that's for the development of certain kind of engine. We're learning a lot. But over here, look what we're doing. We are developing wind energy, sustainability, and so forth. With the audience they're shooting at, they'll make it work. They'll find a way to rationalize it. But it is a great point. And you know what? It's not entirely out of the question that people could eventually shame them into dropping their NASCAR sponsorship. I mean, it's a long shot. I'm not predicting it, but shaming of violators of political correctness is alive and well. And if corporations are very much aware of it and are defensive about it and engage in corporate practices designed to mitigate it. Okay, we're back here, ladies and gentlemen. To wrap it up, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your being with us each and every day here on the EIB network. If you also did not watch the Apple iPhone thing, here's the basic thrust of it is this brand new iPhone 10, the iPhone X. The rumors are they can only make 10,000 of these things a month right now. A week. 10,000 a week is what? 300,000 a month. That's what, 330,000 a month. So the pre-orders are not till October 27th, and the delivery date is November 3rd. Meanwhile, they had the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, which is the upgrades to the iPhone 7. It'd be fascinating to see how those things sell between now and November. And I don't know the quite price points on the 8s and so forth, but at any rate, thanks again so much for being with us here. And we'll look like we're going to be here for the balance of the week in our West Coast operation here. See you tomorrow.